Hey guys, Karexid here with another review. This time I'll be reviewing the Robot Spirits Extreme Gundam Leos Type Xenon phase. So, unlike the Gundam Senra Custom from yesterday, this is a less recognizable Gundam, and that's because this does not originate from any of the anime series. Rather, this is a Gundam that stems from the arcade game Gundam Extreme vs. Full Boost. And being an arcade game, it's naturally, as they've kind of died out in America but are still going strong in Japan, an arcade game that you can only play in Japan. So, in that sense, it isn't so well known, though it is also featured in a tie-in manga. And the Leos type refers to a special color scheme, being this one, used by its pilot, Leos Alloy. So, of course, this includes several things. It includes the figure, 2 beam sabers, 3 sets of alternate hands, a stage clip, and the armor pieces for the Xenon phase. So I'll start off by taking a look at the figure itself. So here's Extreme Gundam. As you can see, its primary color scheme is white, red, and yellow. And one thing you also notice is, one detail that I like a lot is that most of the yellow on here is not yellow paint, but rather clear yellow plastic, which gives a kind of a glowing effect to it. So looking at the head, it's fairly standard for Gundams, although it does have it does do some unique things in how it has a double V crest, though the more V-like one is in white, while one with a bit more angles to it is in yellow. Has a sparkly blue crest up here, with some clear yellow here on the top of the head. Has nice sparkly blue eyes, silver panels on the side of the head. That same blue on the back, with a couple of downward spikes in yellow. And of course the helmet-like design and red chin. The torso is a fairly standard affair, being this gray section covered with a red body plate, as well as these various yellow paint sections among the clear yellow plastic. The arms are also very simple in design, with white shoulder pads with more of the clear yellow, going along these white arms with these red wrists, and what appear to be either some kind of a laser attachment or possibly something like a flamethrower, but though it's likely a wrist-mounted beam weapon. And the hands are the type where it is a gray hand with a white covering, which is something that several Gundams do have. The waist has several armor skirts, the main ones being these in the front in white, and the center one having more clear yellow. While in the back, you have one that has more clear yellow and a lot of red to it, even mixing in a little bit of gold. The legs are also mainly white with these red parts here, and more of the clear yellow plastic. And getting into the feet, we have these white ankle guards, and white with red feet. Got some detail on the bottom too. Going to the back, we have the booster pack, which holsters the handles for the beam sabers, and bits of molded in detail along the back of the legs. Articulation-wise, this does have different articulation from the Sandrock Custom, being a different mold, and it does seem like they put in a little bit more effort into the articulation here. For starters, we have a typical ball-jointed head, though you want to be careful as the V-fins are quite pointy, so you want to be careful so that you don't accidentally, poke yourself too hard in this, and you might, you might injure yourself. These shoulders rotate 360 degrees. Arms go in and out. The shoulder pads are also on hinges that are not quite as tight as those of the Sandrock, but still tight enough. The shoulder can move forward and backward on this hinge joint. Have a bicep swivel, and if you hear that, it's not that the bicep swivel is on a ratchet joint, but rather that mine's a little bit too tight. So it just sounds like a ratchet joint. Double jointed elbow and a ball joint wrist. So one of the things about the Articulation that surprised me is that this actually has a torso joint, in that it can bend this part of the torso forward and back a little bit. And you can see these parts here actually move in and out along with the torso. Has a ball joint waist that is once again restricted by the armor skirts. And we do have a little bit better articulation in the armor skirts here. The front pieces are on ball joints. The side ones are also on ball joints. And the back armor skirt is on a hinge, so it can fold out of the way like so. Unlike the Gundam Sandrock Custom, which had ball jointed legs, this is on a double hinge system with a swivel within the thigh, which I think is a way of working articulation into a Gundam that actually works fairly well, as it's not quite as finicky as a ball joint could be. The knees are double jointed, and there's actually a little detail in there that I quite like. So what happens with this is that you have this little panel back here, and when you fold in the knee, that panel actually folds within the lower leg itself. Then folds back out with the leg. Similarly, the knee pad actually moves on its own hinge when you fold back the knee, so that you don't have the leg fold back and yet have the knee still standing out on the front. The feet are on ball joints, and actually you have the ankle guards actually attached to the feet themselves rather than to the leg. So they move with the foot instead of having to be maneuvered to move the foot. So now, after the articulation, we can take a look at the accessories. So starting off, we have the two beam sabers, which are in clear pink plastic, and are just your standard beam saber shape. They are flexible, but you don't want to flex these too much, as it's not extremely flexible plastic, so these could break. And the way you form these into the beam sabers is you just extract the handles from the backpack, then plug them in like so. A simple connection is tight enough so that they won't fall out. The alternate hands are as such. Of course, you have the default fists that come packaged on it. You have these interestingly shaped gripping hands for the beam sabers. A first pair of splayed out hands, where you have the fingers, the first two fingers in upward position and the second two fingers on a downward position. And then you have a second pair of splayed open hands, which are in more of a grasping position. You have the stage clip, which At first I couldn't quite figure it out, but I eventually figured out that the way it attaches is underneath the waist, like so. And so basically, this is the kind of clip that would... I think this is the kind of clip that would only be really be good for aerial poses. And I actually don't think you would need to use a clip to just have it in a standing pose, as this has a fairly good amount of balance to it. Now, for the Xenon phase pieces, you have a alternate piece for the booster pack. Attachments for the forearms. Attachments for the lower legs, with alternate pieces for them. They'll come into play when I actually do it. Alternate knee pieces, and an alternate groin piece. Now, before getting into the Xenon phase armor, I'll just go into how this holds the beam sabers. As it's not exactly your standard affair for beam sabers. Of course, first you have to swap out the hands, which again, because of the way the ball joints work, is fairly simple for a Robot Spirits figure. Just swing out both the hands like so. So the thing with these is that it's honestly a little bit tricky because it's a looser grip. So you slide them in like so, and it'll kind of at first have a tendency to kind of go like this, so you kind of want to wedge it between the fingers and the thumb as being held like this. And you kind of just want to be careful to fit in there like that, and then not bump into it too much, because it's such an open grip, it's the kind of thing where it could fairly easily just come out and get loose like that. But the beam sabers do look impressive, though the main selling point is the Xenon phase armor. And so I'm just going to switch back to the fists. Just like so. And so the way the Xenon phase armor works is fairly intuitive and fairly simple. Basically, it involves removing certain pieces from Extreme Gundam and then replacing them with the armor parts. So starting from the top, take off this section of the booster pack, and take this one and secure it into place like so. And note is that this is actually a fairly light piece, so it doesn't make Extreme Gundam back heavy. Next, take off these pieces from the arms. Take these pieces, and what I would suggest doing is you fold out these to do it, just because these have a tendency to sometimes fold inwards. So just fold these out like this, attach them to the two clips on the forearms. Then fold in those pieces against the arms. Same with the other side. like so. Take this piece, remove it, then just plug on the alternate piece. Remove the knee pieces and replace them with the alternate knees. And what you'll notice is that these are designed to look like this armor was attached on top of this one. And for the last step, you take off both of these panels from the sides of the legs. Like so. You take these pieces and split them apart. And you take them and attach them into the proper ports. And similar to the knee pieces, these are designed to look like the armor part is rather attached over these side panels. Then put it on the other side. Do the same with this one. Just like so. And with that all done, and just moving the alternate pieces out of the way. We have the Extreme Gundam in Xenon phase. So the Xenon phase armor gives it a more bulky and honestly more impressive look, as it adds more red and yellow as well as gold to the color scheme. And it makes it look more powerful than the honestly fairly generic looking Extreme Gundam. The articulation isn't hindered in any way because these are armor pieces that simply attach onto the arms and don't add too much bulk to it. Although the joints of the legs are slightly hindered, this can actually be fixed by one of the features it says, as most of these pieces actually have moving parts to them. And that's for its finishing attack, the Shining Bunker. So for the backpack, you take this piece and rotate it around here, then open these up to reveal jet boosters. For the forearms, extend this piece out and fold it up. Extend this piece back, like so. Fold these down and fold the panels outward. Same with the other side. And also of note is that these panels are on swivel joints, so you can angle them to your preference. And actually, while I'm at, I'm just going to take the beam saber handles and plug them back into the backpack. Like that. And for the legs, where you take this piece, flip it up, and you see this clear piece inside. So you just pop that out and swap it with these ones where the inner piece is spread out. And of course they didn't slack on the details, even adding in the details in here. which can only really be seen clearly when you have a piece detached. Do the same on the other side. Like so. Want to make sure it's fully plugged in. Then for these, flip them around and slide them down until they click into place. Like so. As when they're like this, they can flip out, but they go down to here. So whereas when you have them like this, you have them so that these are angled like so. And so there you have it, ready for the shining bunker. And so of course you can take it and pose it, however you want. Something like that maybe. And so when it's like this, it kind of gets rid of that restriction to the articulation that was caused by these being flipped up. And because the armor pieces here cover up more of the knee, it kind of solves one of the problems I have with the knee articulation when it doesn't have the Xenon phase armor, which is that when it's in its normal form, it just seems to show a little bit too much of the joint when you have it bent. So it looks better when you actually have these armor pieces attached. And it does look very impressive with all these pieces out. It does give it a very powerful look. And of course you can just as easily switch it back into the normal Xenon phase. And as a matter of fact, it actually is packaged in Xenon phase, so when you get out of the box, you have to use the pieces to swap out it. You use these swappable pieces to turn into the regular Extreme Gundam. But of course, since the Xenon phases added armor, I just decided to go from the base body and then go from there. And as you can see, it's a very simple process to just take it and, turn it either into the Xenon phase armor, or from there, open up the parts for the shining bunker. And I guess just one thing I want to point out is that, at least for mine, I guess there was just a little bit of QC problems with the articulation in that, well, it doesn't seem like it so much. The waist on mine is a little bit loose. Not so much that it'll wobble about too much, although the legs wobble a little bit if I shake it while holding the upper torso. But it doesn't seem like it's the kind of thing where it could fall over too much or have the articulation affected by weight. And I say that because this is not the only... The Xenon phase is not the only set of armor that the Extreme Gundam Leos type has. It has two more phases called the Eclipse phase and Agios phase that will be released as a Top Hue exclusive later this year. So I do think that I'm probably going to get that set called the Extreme Gundam Options set and review it, to show off more of this figure. As if you look it up, the armor for the other two phases is quite impressive, and it actually gives him an incredibly large set of wings on the back. And so I say that because I'm not sure how much the wings will weigh, though I don't think that, at least with my figure, the waist will be too much of a problem as far as that wing pack. But overall, this is a very nice figure. I love all the detail to it. The use of clear yellow plastic for glowing parts is a very nice look to it. Has very impressive articulation, even more impressive than the Gundam Sandrock Custom. And just to say, the only reason why I'm comparing it to the Gundam Sandrock Custom is that it's the only other Gundam Robot Spirits figure I have. It's nice how it has just how simple it is, just how simple and easy it is to swap out the armor pieces and to use the moving parts. And it's even nice how they add in such simple touches as this panel that folds in back here, and the way the knees fold with the leg. As well as how simple and intuitive the moving parts are, as well as how they give these pieces the appearance of going over the normal armor, while in actuality it's part swapping. So overall, this is a great figure, though it's not exactly the most well-known Gundam. It is a very impressive figure nonetheless. It has a cool design. It looks even cooler when you have the Xenon phase armor on. It has great articulation. Okay, I'm kind of repeating myself, but basically, there aren't really any flaws to this. This is a great figure, and definitely one that I recommend if you are into the Robot Spirits line. And so, like I said, while it's not exactly going to be all too often, I think I am going to at least try to kind of get into the Robot Spirits line and collect more of these, just because, I guess this figure is just a great example of kind of the potential that the Robot Spirits line has. It's because, even with just how many pieces it comes with, it's just so easy to use and such an impressive figure. It can hold its poses, it can do a variety of poses, and it just looks great on a shelf as a display piece. And of course you have these different options, which will increase with the Extreme Gundam option set. So yeah, definitely recommended, and I'm glad that I got this figure. So, thanks for watching. Please rate, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel for more videos. And for now, this is KRX50, riding off.